Hi, this is Julian Rogers for Pro Tools Expert. I've been playing with McDSP's AE400 Active EQ. I'm a big fan of Active EQ because I have found that there are some times when you're EQing something using a conventional static EQ where you're splitting the difference between when you like the EQ active and when you'd like it bypassed. All of this can be fixed by automation, but that can be quite laborious and time consuming, and something like this is the ideal solution. I've got two sets of violin cues here. They're the same player but different microphones. I've got one set with a ribbon and another take with a small diaphragm condenser. You'll hear they sound very different, and something that I've always thought about violins is if you point a microphone at them, that can bring out all of the bad things about the sound. Anyway, here we go. We'll just listen to this first take. This is the ribbon mic on its own with no processing at all. There are some bits where it moves into the higher register, it can get a little bit screechy. That can be fixed, and I've tried to fix it using this band 3 over here. But there's also a little bit in here that I think the fundamental sticks out a bit too much. It's a C that sort of hangs around a little bit too long and makes itself known a little bit too much. If I try to find it, it's this one here. It's not a big deal, but this note, listen to this, and every time that comes around it's just a little bit too loud for my liking. I don't know if it's the instrument or the room or the mic or a combination of all three, but I'd like to tame that a little bit. So just here, I'll just make this active. Here I've got that frequency, it's 260 Hz and just a quite narrow cue, so it's only really affecting that one note when that comes around. And you'll see that this isn't attenuating at all, but when 260 Hz exceeds the threshold, just like a compressor, it dips the level of that by this amount here. So let's just go again with nothing. It's just a little bit tubby. It's lighter. If I bring band 3 back in, here what I've got is I've got 3.5K. That's a bad frequency. Anyone who's ever had some 3.5K feedback come back at them, that's a pretty dead centre kind of on our sensitive bit of our hearing. And if we listen here, this is getting kind of the rub, if you know what I mean. If I just bring the output up, we'll have a listen to what that's doing. In fact, I can do it better than that. I'll key it. This is what this is. So, screech frequencies. So, let's have a listen to this bit, and I'll bring that band in and out. So, with nothing. And with some. I think that's without going too far, because it's quite alarming when you're using this and you look at the amount of gain reduction you're using. the amount you're pulling frequencies down by, and they seem too much. But if you keep in mind that it's only engaging that amount of gain reduction on the bits that are prompting you to make that decision, then it kind of makes a bit more sense. However, just for comparison, and I'm not sure this is a fair comparison, but just for comparison, what I've done is I've put up another AE400 with exactly the same settings, but instead of them being dynamic, they're static. This is a conventional EQ. Rather than reducing the gain here on the bit that responds to the frequency exceeding the threshold, I've just pulled the level of that band down. And if you hear the difference, if I A and B between them, I'll go from this one, which is static, to that one, which is active, and then to nothing at all, and then back round. That's nothing. That's static. And that's active. Static. And nothing at all. There we go. To give another example, I've got something very similar but using a small diaphragm condenser. This was using a true Omni, so Omni cap in an NT55. And you'll hear it's very different indeed. It's got a lot of detail, but some of that detail isn't really welcome. So what did I do on there? In here, what I've got is I used a combination of active and static EQ. If I bring up this output here, I can bring in, it's a conventional EQ, it's just boosting those frequencies. I felt that the fundamental was lacking a little bit on here. It hadn't got the body and the warmth. So here it is with those fundamental frequencies just brought up a little bit. And bringing in bands, well, band 3 and band 4, they're in similar areas but doing something slightly different. Band 3, if we key that one, what that's doing is it's getting to that, well, you'll hear. And when it goes to that higher register, it gets quite shrill. And this is relatively narrow Q, and it's just trying to dip, as soon as those frequencies exceed the threshold, bring them down by quite a lot. As opposed to this one, it's not a great deal higher. I mean, it's kind of nearly an octave higher, but it's much broader Q and gentler. And what that's doing is it's just bringing down the level of that excessive detail, all the rub and high frequency information in that fiddle. So let's have a listen to that in key. And listen to those in context. With no EQ. A little bit more warmth. So just to look at the static alternative, here we go. Here is the static version of that EQ. Which sounds like some really heavy-handed and ill-advised EQ. It just goes to show that the amount to which, when I'm using static EQ, I'm tending to split the difference between EQing the part that I want to affect when it gets unpleasant, and leaving the wanted sound intact when that EQ possibly isn't called for quite as much. These are great. They're quite complex. It's taken me quite a long time to get to know it, and I'm still making mistakes and going in too hard with my processing. But if you haven't tried something like this, you should definitely check it out. Anyway, there we go. See you next time.